Avoiding Plagiarism in Your Writing Assignments by Dr. Paula Porter. This short presentation will explain what is plagiarism, the types of plagiarism, the purpose of writing a research paper, how to avoid plagiarism, the consequences of plagiarism, and when and how to cite to avoid plagiarism. Plagiarism is a serious charge in college. It is when we borrow, use, or take the words, ideas, and information from another source without crediting the original author. Even when we use our own words, if the information came from somewhere else, we must cite where the information came from. The internet and the ability to cut and paste has made plagiarism easier to commit, but it is just as easy for your professor to discover that act of plagiarism as well. While plagiarism may be accidental because a student doesn't understand the concept, the punishment is just the same, and even if you had no intention of plagiarizing, if you do not use quotation marks and cite correctly within your paper, this is considered plagiarism. It is your responsibility to know and avoid plagiarism in all your work. Ignorance is not an excuse. There are 5 common types of plagiarism. The first is when we copy directly from another source without using quotation marks and a citation. This is usually the cut and paste method. Many of you do this as we are writing our paper and think we will go back and fix it later. But we often forget. This is generally the most common form of plagiarism. The second type is when we try to paraphrase by changing a few words in a passage and don't cite. In this case, it looks like we are using our own words and thoughts, when in reality we are not, we are plagiarizing. The third method of plagiarizing is taking information from another source and use it in our own words and them not citing. Many students are under the false idea that if it is in our own words, we do not need to cite. This is a common misunderstanding and one that is considered accidental plagiarism. However, just as if you ran a red light because you did not see it and caused an accident, not knowing you are plagiarizing is not a defense. The last 2 types of plagiarism are often ignored by students. If you reuse a paper from a previous course, say a psychology paper for an English course, this is considered personal plagiarism. You cannot use a paper for a class unless you have approval from your professor. Don't expect it to be approved. Even if you use parts of your previous paper in another paper, you must cite your original paper or it is considered plagiarism. The last one is usually a form of plagiarism done by a student who doesn't understand the material or is pressed for time. This includes buying a paper from one of the thousands of websites that sell them or having a friend or family member write your paper. While you may think it is not easy to catch someone writing your papers for you, most of your instructors know your style of writing and voice and can often distinguish when someone else is writing your paper. You tend to use phrases and have an individual style. Men write differently than women, older students will write differently than younger. Most instructors will have you write a paragraph or 2 the first day of class so they have a sample of your writing. If you purchase a paper, you have to remember, if you found the cited paper, so can your instructor. You have to ask yourself, is the $200 or more you pay for a paper worth the F in your transcript? The following slides present some examples of plagiarism by example. If you just copy and paste the material without quotation marks and a citation, it is plagiarism. Many students think if they put in quotes they are fine. Not so. You need both the quotation marks and a proper citation. Forgetting to put in one or the other is not an excuse. It is generally accepted that with undergraduate papers, no more than 10% of your paper can be indirect quotes. Any more and you will likely receive a lower grade for the overuse of quotes. Don't do what one of my students once did and turn in a paper with 90% of it in quotes. Even if the paper was correctly cited and the quotes were used properly, there was little to no original work. Quotes should support your evidence in the paper, not make up the entire paper. A patchwork paper is when students copy and paste information from multiple sites and puts them throughout their writing. Unfortunately, because most colleges and universities use a source like Turnitin or SafeAssign, this is also caught quite easily. In addition, it is usually the language and the word used that stands out as patchwork, as most college students do not write like a professional and published writer. When we paraphrase, we take the words of another and put it in our own words. We usually take a paragraph or 2 and boil it down to 1 or 2 sentences. This is a skill that takes some practice, but it is an important skill to develop in college. Plagiarism is usually the work of a desperate student, one who is writing their paper in one day, the day before it is due. However, it is vital to plan your research paper out and give yourself enough time to research and write your paper. Start early and work on the paper throughout the term. Don't wait for the last minute, as your paper will show the lack of effort. Remember to keep track of your resources and where you got them. It is also a good habit to cite as you write, because in many cases you will forget. Since citations are merely the author's last name and year of publication, how hard is that to put in as you are writing? When you quote, make sure to go back and review the quote. You will lose points in your paper if you misspell information in the quote, for example. Also, if you are using a quote, go back and make sure that no more than 10% of your paper is in direct quotes. For example, if you highlight the quote and look at the left-hand bottom of the Word document, you will see how many words are highlighted. Add all your quotes up and determine if you are under the 10% rule. Not everything in a paper needs to be cited. When information is considered common knowledge, such as Columbus discovered America in 1492, or George Washington was the first president, or Pearl Harbor led to the U.S. entering World War II, we do not have to cite the source. Common knowledge is considered facts that can be found in multiple places and likely to be known by most people in a culture. There may also be common knowledge within your field of study, such as the process of photosynthesis is common knowledge in biology. Oftentimes it is difficult to determine what is common knowledge, so be sure to ask your professor if you have any questions. Remember, too, that professors have no way of knowing what is common knowledge to an individual student. For instance, you may be a classical musician and know through previous students that the Renaissance period in classical music was known for its emphasis on simplicity and consonance. But your literature teacher may not know your depth of understanding of the Renaissance period and deduct points for not properly citing information. There are two ways to protect yourself when it comes to common knowledge. Ask your professor or try to find a reference or source that can support your statement and cite it. When we paraphrase or cite a source, we need to put the author's last name and year of publication in parentheses at the end of the paraphrase or summary. Here are a couple of examples. More information is available in your course, by visiting the Writing Center, or by visiting the library. When you cite a quotation, we need one more piece of information, the page or paragraph number where the citation appeared. Again, examples are provided in the slide. However, you are encouraged to visit with your professor if you need more information on how to cite. 2 punctuation rules for citations. There is only one period, and it follows the parentheses, which are considered part of the sentence. In addition, the period is not found inside the quotes in APA. More information can be found in the APA manual or in 7 steps in researching and writing an APA paper. It is important to review your student handbook to understand the consequences of plagiarism. Some professors will provide the information on plagiarism in their syllabus, so there is no excuse that you did not know what plagiarism is. You must understand that plagiarism is your responsibility as a student. There are a multitude of tools and people on campus to help you be successful and not plagiarize. Do not be embarrassed to ask for help. The final slides here are covering some rules of thumb when writing papers at the undergrad level. Remember that every paragraph you write will likely have a paraphrase or quotation. Don't forget the 10% rule. It is always better to paraphrase information in your own words, because this shows that you have understood what you have read enough to put it in your own words. The most important rule of avoiding plagiarism is to cite as you write. If you have any questions, please contact your professor, the Writing Center, or the librarians. We are here as part of your team.